where we're at. Last time we completed the story of being able to request the current balance via SMS text messages. We used Twilio to do that, and so we can go ahead and look at the implementation. So here we had an adapter test. So this was testing the controller directly, and basically we were checking that if the phone number was authorized, then you could request the balance. If it wasn't authorized, then you basically ignore any inputs from there. And so one of the things we extracted was this phone number authorizer. And this was something that we made into a little service so that we could, in our tests, mock out what was considered a known phone number versus what was considered um, basically not known. Very simple interface, but it's a service, and so it gets injected into the SMS controller. And so if we look at the SMS controller, we can see that it gets besides the account, right? Remember, so this thing currently has one account, and one of the things we're going to, sort of the bigger changes that's up next, is the ability to basically have multiple accounts. So we've got the account that has obviously the account information, and the phone number authorizer that tells us whether you're permitted to receive the balance via text. um, there's some code in here that is very specific to the Twilio way of doing things. One of the things we're going to do sometime this week, I think, is allow for switching SMS providers. So if you followed me on Twitter, where I'm also JitterTed, you might have seen some tweets where I was talking about the process of signing up for let's see, I signed up for Nexmo, which is owned by Vonage, the IP phone provider. And there was some weirdness with that, but finally got an account set up. Bandwidth, which is probably the main competitor to Twilio, they're quite a bit cheaper. So I've got that all set up. And then Plivo had some problems signing up because it didn't like I guess, the middle initial in my name. Because I always try to use my middle initial when I sign up for things Ted M. Young, and most systems are not set up that way, which is really kind of annoying. So often I'll actually do like Ted M as my first name, which is always also confusing some systems. I really would love for developers to read like the 40 myths about names. Um, it's like not everybody has a first name, not everybody has a last name, not everybody has just a single middle initial. So there are all sorts of things. Plivo was interesting because it had a field for full name, but then didn't like the fact that I had a middle name with an initial. So uh, they contacted me offline, and they're going to set up an account for me while they fix that bug. Um, don't be overzealous. I guess the lesson here is don't validate things that you don't need to validate. So things like names, un unless you're like doing it for some legal terms, don't validate names. Leave them as is. This is somebody's name. They can refer to themselves however they want to. Again, unless it's a legal thing like, a bank or other financial institution, um, ask for their full name. Ask for like, what should we call you casually, so you can send them an email saying hi, whoever. But like, don't validate names. We really don't need to do that. Okay. Um, and we may actually apply that lesson today. So as I mentioned, so those are the other SMS providers that we'll switch to, and we'll see some refactorings that will probably come out of that. So let's go back and look at so today we're going to do some authentication. So we're going to start with some simple basic authentication. The idea is I want to get to the point where I can have two roles, or two kinds of users, the parent and the child. So the parent will be allowed to do anything, um, the child will be only allowed to check their balance. Um, I may want to also allow a child to deduct, basically spend money, but I kind of feel like that's not really necessary because if they're spending money, it means the parent basically either put it on their credit card or handed them cash, and so the parent can track that. However, the child would like to look at what the current balance is. And we'll see there's some later stories where want to be able to do things like um, categorize earning sources. So also see transactions. Where did I earn money from? Things like, where is it? I have something about goals. Um, show goals progress. So like if they're saving up for something, how are they, where are they in reaching that goal? But minimally right now, I want to be able to differentiate between a parent and a child so that uh, child can just view balance and view transactions. Parent can do the deposit, spend, and everything else. There may be some later things that I want to do where I get to more complex things, such as multi-tenancy. So right now I'm assuming this one application is good for one person, basically me, and one child, basically my child. But I've had friends saying, hey, I'd like to use this. That would be cool. Um, one possibility is I could simply have a separate deployment for each of them, but that's kind of wasteful, considering that this certainly does not take up much CPU or database power. So I'll want to get to multi-tenant authentication. At that point, I'm going to use something like either Okta or Auth0 or OneLog, and basically some other uh, provider, because I don't want to manage passwords. I don't know about you, but the idea of managing passwords, properly encrypting them, doing things like handling password resets and tokens and all, I honestly, I don't want to deal with it. I'm happy to have somebody else do it, even if I have to pay them a little. Um, but for the first thing we want to do is basically do some simple authentication. So let's go and let's run all our tests. And we'll run all tests. And while that's running, I'm going to open up uh, another project. And at some point, I might want to look into making some of these integration tests faster. Um, I feel like there's ways to make that faster. And I know, like, you know, zero point 0.7 seconds is slow, but it's actually much slower than that. Oh, oh, a test failed. All right, I'll have to look at that. Oh, I bet I know what that is. Okay. So yeah, so even though my tests take 4 seconds, that's a long time. But let's look at that failed test. So what's going on here? It expected this, but it was at, did I not? Let's see. Let's see what's going on with this. So here it was, we did a deposit, right, just to make sure there was some non-zero amount in the account. This was our known number. Um, oh, right. Okay. So this was the case where I had was playing around with configurable environment stuff. So let me undo that. Basically, I was trying to find out a way of setting up system properties that was other than using this mechanism. I could also do a mock. I guess I could now do a mock of the uh, the phone number authorizer. So, because this has a dependency. Well, actually, this doesn't have much of a dependency. I'll leave this because this stuff is going to change anyway. Okay, so let's just run this test. We'll just run the failed test over here. Man, this test takes so long. IntelliJ really lies about this, and it's kind of annoying because here it says, oh, look, it only took 637 milliseconds to run it. It's like, yes, maybe the actual core of the test only took that long, but the entire life cycle of running that test was from 11:15:47, almost 48 seconds, uh, 11:15:33. So that was like, what, 48, so like 15 seconds. That took like 14, 15 seconds. That's a long time. I don't know. I think that, whereas I know some people, it's like, oh, my tests ran fast. It only ran in like 10 minutes. Like, no, that's not fast. I want them to run in sub-second. Okay, so I think we're good. I don't think I have anything to commit, right? So that's good. I don't know why you switched over to this window. We'll come back to that. So this site, welltestedlearning.com, is the site that I use in my training classes, and so you're free to go and look around, because sort of my day job, as it were, is as a Java and Spring trainer, and so I use this. This has all the labs that I assign in class that we work on, and so since I don't memorize all these things, like I still have to look up things. So things like security. Um, it's probably been a couple of months since the last time I did anything with it. So I actually have a lab in one of my classes that's about security, and so I'm going to use that to basically implement this, um, implement the simple basic security for this project. All right, so right now, if we look at, let's actually run the application. So right now it is it's completely open, right? There's no login page, there's nothing like that. And so the first step is we want to basically provide a login page. So let's do that. Let's minimize that. And the way we do that is we need to make sure we have some of the Spring dependencies. So starter security, um, we're using time leaf, so we need to make sure we have the time leaf security stuff. So let's go and check out our POM file. So I have that commented out, so I'm going to uncomment this. That's the Spring Security test. I'm going to reorganize these a bit. So these are my test scope things. And this is my database stuff. We haven't gotten to adding Flyway. That's on the list. Deploying to Azure is also on the list. And let's see. Here's the Spring Starter Security. Bring that in. What version? Spring Boot just released 2.13, so let's go ahead and actually just upgrade that while we're at it. And I think I have a story for that. So let's go look at the story for that. I have a task for that, update. So I'm going to move that to the top. So we're already on 2.12, so going to 2.13 shouldn't be that big of a deal. And let's make sure we always download sources and docs. Okay. All right. And at some point, probably not this week, but maybe not far in the future, we'll jump to JDK 11 and maybe try out JDK 12. Okay, so we've got the dependencies that we need. We've got we need the springleaf. The time leaf extras are useful, so let's bring those in. And let me check what versions that those are. So if we go to Maven repository, so, and we want to look for, what was it? Spring security. Or is it Spring security, Spring 4? Time leaf Spring 4, although I guess we're on Spring 5. But I want the Spring security. I think this is what I want. 304 is the latest release. So what do I have here? I've got 302. Okay. So we'll bring in 304. Where is my time leaf? Time leaf. Okay. Now technically we're using Spring 5 underneath because we're using Spring Boot 2.1. So this will be interesting because I've actually only done this for Spring 1.5, so we may run into some hiccups. So let's see. Okay. The next thing we want to do is we want to basically create a security config, but let's just rerun it because now that security is on the class path and that's turned on, it should force us to do a login using the basic login. So we'll let that build and run. And so here we can see the default security chain. So any request basically gets put through it. And here's the user-generated security password. So that's probably what we're going to need when we try and log in. So let's go and reload this page. And so we see a login page. And it's going to be admin and then that user-generated page. And then we can sign in. Is it not admin? So that's the password. That's a good question. What's the username? I mean, technically I don't have anything set up, so I have no idea what the username would be. I guess it's user. Okay. So now we're logged in because we use the generated password. So by default, everything is really locked down with basically a random password. For now, we're going to... so what we want to do is we want to provide our own login page. Well, okay, so let's take a step back and think about what is it we want here. We want to be able... well, okay. So this page is this multifunction page, right? We got the nice sort of list of transaction and balance up here, and then we've got these deposit, spend money, and import forms. So in order to provide security, we'd have to be locked down sections of a page, which is kind of annoying. So I think before we can get to the full security, we're going to have to go through and split out these pages. So that's been a long time in coming, so now we got to bite the bullet and do it. So let's not worry about the security stuff right now. And so let's go. Do I have a story for splitting this stuff out? No. All right, so let's go split, deposit, spend, import to separate pages. Okay. So let's go. It's been a while since we've looked at our time leaf, basically our view. So here's the account balance template, which is basically the entire page. And what we want, so this is the root page. I'm not sure I want to keep it. Hey, Alex. I'm not sure I want to keep it at the root, but I don't have a compelling reason yet to move it elsewhere. So what we're going to do is these three sections, this deposit form, this spend money form, and then this import form, they're all going to go to separate pages. So what I want to do is write a test first. So let's go to our integration tests for the view. Here we go. So we've got one for new account view has no transactions, the deposit transaction. We're able to post to deposit, that kind of thing, and we get back the transactions. So what we want is we're going to want to have from the home page a button or three for deposit, spend, and import. That will take us to the individual pages. So let's first those work on splitting out the pages. Let's just let's grab these annotations because we're going to use those, and we'll create a new class. Whoops, darn it. Yes. So I need to change my key map. Hold on a second. So it's IntelliJ's choices sometimes for their shortcuts is kind of odd. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I create classes way, way, way more often than I want to create a scratch file. So Command Shift N on the Mac, I'm sure there's something similar on the PC, basically opens up a scratch file. It's like, I don't want a scratch file. I want to create a new class. So let me remove the shortcut from there, and what I want is new Java class, and I want to create add that shortcut there, and keyboard shortcut Command Shift N. Because I already have Control Shift N for creating just a regular file, and Command Shift N is my primary thing. So let's do that and apply that. All right, create a new file. Come on. There we go. And so this is going to be our deposit view integration test. It needs to go in the integration test directory. That's that one. I don't know why it doesn't show me this as one of the choices in the original dropdown. It's like, I might have to file a bug about that. Okay, so now we're in the right place. These are all our integration tests up here, and let's put that there. So now we have our mock MVC. What else do we need? Yeah, we'll auto wire this guy. And we'll want something. I don't know if we'll want a post, but we certainly will want something like a get. So let's go. All right, so we want to test that. Oops. Get against deposit URI should return deposit form page. Okay, so what we're saying is that if we go to /deposit, that we want to expect that, what do we expect? We expect that, so there's a mock MVC result matcher. We certainly want the status to be okay, and we expect mock MVC result matcher. So we want to check the model. So what we're checking for is a few things. We want to check that. Actually, I think right now we can just check that the view is something, that the view has the name of deposit. we'll be able to check for more specific details, and we're not going to use this assert that. Basically, we want to check that if we hit deposit, we get the deposit page, and then we'll be able to look more deeply into it. We'll look at the model to make sure that the right data is in there. What happened? Oh, we're not saving a result, so we don't need that. We're just verifying this. Okay, so if we run this test, just thinking of, yeah, let me add a task here. So I want to figure out, I'm just basically creating a task, figure out if we can make integration tests run faster when we don't need the database. Okay. All right. That test failed as expected, because right now the only thing responding to deposit is basically, oh, okay, so we've got the security stuff involved. Let me actually turn off security for a bit. So let's put that into a section here. And we'll comment this out. Oh, there's my timely starter. Spring Boot starter, security. We'll take this, move it to here, and comment it out. When we put this back, we'll need to add some stuff to the test to work around the security thing, but I want to sort of not have that stuff get in the way. There's also security test, but that might be okay. Okay, so let's run the test again. Man, that test takes so long. Okay, and we're right. So this is what I expected, is that the get method is not supported, because right now the only time we use the /deposit is for when we're doing the post back from the deposit. So good. So that's expected. So fail is expected. Let's go to our which class is it? Our account controller. And so here we've got deposit. So first of all, I think let's move this method over to a new controller. So oops, I didn't want to move that. I wanted to move this method. So we're going to move this method. Oh, I can't use the refactor. Okay, that's fine. So let's grab this. Actually, let's grab this. We'll create a new file. See, I used the shortcut again, way more often than Scratch. We want to have a deposit controller. And so this will be an @controller because it's a web controller. We'll put this back. We're going to have to make a field for account. I don't know why that's account. We'll make it final, and then that'll force us to create a constructor, which we will then auto-wire. Okay, that should not have changed any functionalities. So let's run all integration tests. We still expect our deposit one to fail, but the other ones will pass, assuming we haven't broken anything, which we shouldn't have, other than maybe a test doesn't compile. Right, because this one's calling against the account controller. Well, that's a good indication that actually this test should also move. So let's move this test. So we'll move this test to deposit controller. not deposito, controller test. And this will be deposit controller. And this is also deposit controller. And the instance is a deposit controller, not deposit controller test. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, that was weird. And you don't like that. Why? Didn't I just create that class? Did the class go in the wrong place? Oh, weird. Oh, I accidentally renamed that. That was unfortunate. Wish it wouldn't have allowed me to do that because like that's just not standard. Okay. Or should have really warned me. Okay, that's good. So now our deposit controller test will compile. Let's make sure everything builds first. Good. And now we'll run all the integration tests. Okay, good. So all the tests failed. Sorry, all the tests passed except for the one that we're working on, which failed, which is good because that's what we wanted. Okay. So let's go ahead and so we expect this to return a page called deposit. And so now what we want to do is basically take this deposit form. Actually want to just copy the whole thing, and this will be deposit. And we don't want we don't want the account. I guess we can display the account balance, but we're not going to display the transactions on this page. And here's our deposit form, and we're not going to have anything else. So eventually we can make this into a timely fragment. That way, if we change it, we don't have to basically copy and paste it everywhere. Okay, so that's the page, and now we can go to the controller and create a get mapping. So get mapping, and this is also deposit, which I guess we can move up to the sorry, there's a little glitch there. So we can actually move this up to the up here. So request mapping. That way it's always responding to deposit. This is going to be a public string. It's going to return the name of a view, deposit form. And so what we're going to want to do is, for now, just return deposit because we don't need anything else. The page will fail because it is expecting some stuff to be in there. So let's go and look at the account controller. It puts some stuff into the page that is only useful for deposit, basically the deposit command. So since we took that out of, did we actually take it out of the home page? No, we didn't. So since we moved that, let's go ahead and actually remove it from here. And so now we can completely remove it out of deposit controller. Eventually we'll get rid of this spend command and the import command, and so then all that will be left here is balance and transactions. We're also going to have to put the balance in there because our page uses that, but we'll get there. So deposit controller, yes, we're going to need a model, so this is model. Is that the right model? No. Yes. Yes, it is. model. And we'll also need the, basically add this account balance, which again, we probably want to have, it's a little redundant, but that's okay. Okay, so we have the balance, so that's available to the page, and we have the deposit command, so that's available to the form on the page. We return deposit, which will show the page. So now if we run, I don't want to run all the integration tests. I want to run just the deposit view one. And this should now pass. It's not checking anything deeper than just that we're returning that page. While we're waiting, I can write what I want for the next test, which is and expect the model and may as well import this statically. So the test passed, so that's good. So basically we're saying the status is okay. It gives us deposit as the name of the view, and then on the model we can assert that the balance attribute exists, and the stuff that the form page needs, which is the deposit object. This is a bug in IntelliJ, and I need to file this bug. So there's a shortcut key that will auto-complete, sort of auto-finish the current line. Basically adding any parentheses and semicolons as needed to complete things. But if I'm in this situation where I haven't closed the quote, I would expect the Command Shift Enter, which is the shortcut, to do the right thing. Now it did it there, but I've seen it sometimes add in a semicolon inside the double quote, which is weird. Okay. Is there anything else we want to assert about this page? We could assert something about the deposit object, but I don't think I want to go that far. Okay. I think that's all we want. This test is in the wrong place. This test should actually be in, actually all these tests should be in adapter web. And we can delete this. Yes. Okay, better. So let us go and we can run this test. While we're waiting for that, we can think about what we want to do next. We can actually, so okay, so now we've pulled the deposit stuff out of the main page. Now we have a deposit page that's separate. We can try going to that directly. So once this test runs, and it should pass, which it does, we can now actually run the application. So we'll notice that obviously there's no deposit button yet that takes us to the page, so we'll do that next. And then we'll take a break. All right, so we'll go here. So now we notice the deposit form is gone. We can go there manually by going to deposit. And there's our deposit form. We have our account balance. At some point, we'll want to make this nicer. It's kind of ugly, but we can fix that. So let's just try deposit. Let's say $100 and gift and deposit. Cool. We got redirected back to the home page, which is fine. That's okay. That's what we want. and we have a test actually for that. Home page exists. Deposit. I'm going to take this test and move it to the other one because that's really a deposit test. Okay. All right. So that's all working. All our tests are working. Great. Okay. So going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll add the button. We have the deposit page, and it has been pulled out. And so now what we want to do is on the account page, we want to have a button for deposit. Not really using much in the way of fancy CSS. So let's see what we want to do. Want to have something that's a nicer button. But I won't bore you with that. So we'll just create a button. um, shows you how rusty I am with my HTML for buttons. So that's kind of ugly. I wish they'd use a better example. So pretty much it's class and type equals button, and then oh, okay, so that kind of thing. So I don't know, do I have to say type equals, I guess, oh, I guess because it could be a submit, but it's just a regular button. Except it has to redirect to, so actually I want a link that looks like a button. Yeah, so actually I want an ahref. Can I add href to button? Oh, that's old. How about something in the past, like I guess, yeah, I guess I could do that. Wrap the button in an ahref, or I could style it. I'm probably going to end up styling it. So okay, so I'm going to just make it an ahref, and we're going to make it a time leaf href because we're going to. Um, Actually, we don't need to, not yet. We may later if we have some interesting things, but this is basically going to go to deposit. Enter deposit. And is there some simple styling I can do? Yeah, I don't want to do that. I just want like a nice, without having to pull in a complete CSS framework. Let's have something nicer. All right, I'm just gonna sort of copy all this. It may be overkill to do that. Let's see, where is our CSS? There it is. Not sure I like red for the background color, but it certainly stands out, and I won't bore you with looking at colors because I could spend hours on that. Okay, so let's go back to our account balance, enter deposit. So that should be styled reasonably well. Let's see what that looks like. So let's refresh this page. Oh, it didn't actually reload the CSS, so I'll have to restart to do that. I think one of my next tasks is to get a designer to help me prettify this page a bit more. Okay, let's try it again. And there's our enter deposit button, which weirdly overlaps with this thing. I'm not sure why it does that. And I realize I'm going to say, let's do deposit money. Does it have like negative margins or something? It's got padding. It's got a little bit of a box shadow, but it's got padding. All right, I'll have to figure out why this is like overlapping. Oh, weird, unless yeah, that's just weird. All right, well, I'm not going to worry about that right now. All right, I'm not going to worry about that because otherwise I'll get hung up on that. Okay, so we've got a deposit button. Does it work? Oh, nice little click thing. Okay, and yeah, we'll clean up this page. Probably want like a link to return to the home page, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. All right, so while we're at it, let's now oh, I forgot to reset the Pomodoro timer. Okay. So let's pull out so we have the deposit controller, so we pulled that out. We're going to now do the same thing for the spend controller. So we'll create a spend controller that'll handle the spending. So it's going to be a controller. It's going to be request mapping, so it'll be spend. And like our deposit controller, we're going to have a reference to an account. And we'll rename this to spend controller. That all works. Okay. And now we'll take, so now we'll go to our tests. So our account, transaction view integration test. This is just dealing with, this is just looking at transactions. This one has the submit send that we want to pull out. I think then actually this can move into the view integration test just that the home page exists. Honestly, not really asserting anything on that. I already have something that checks that. So you know what? I don't think I want that test anymore. Okay. So now this test can actually become, you know, can actually become the spend view integration test. So I should put this on the deposit view just to be sure, because I'm actually doing a deposit. So let's do that. Okay. And we're going to do something similar. So we're going to basically say get against the spend page, do the right thing there. So get against spend, URI should return spend form page. So this is spend. The view name is going to be, not surprisingly, spend. And so the balance is going to be there, and then we're going to have a spend object. I think that's what it is. Let's see. I guess we'll find out. Okay. So let's stop the app. And we'll run this. This one's gonna fail. All right, so that failed. It should have failed because get is not compatible with post. Correct. Right, because right now there's only a post to spend. There isn't a get on the spend page. So this is the same process we did before. So let's go ahead and go to our account controller. And we're going to pull out the spend stuff. That's this part. And we're going to go into our spend controller. And we're going to create this is going to be the get mapping. And so it's going to return string, which is the name of the view, and spend form. And so the model. So we create the spend command, we put it in there. We're also going to need the balance like we had before, which is, I have lost in my paste. So go to that. So we have the balance on the page, we'll have the spend form, and then we will return spend. So we can copy this page and we'll copy it to spend. And then we'll basically delete this part. We'll go to our account balance page, take out this, go back to spend, insert that here. So now we have our spend money balance. This is spend. And let's go back to our spend controller. So that all looks good now. We need to move from the account controller the actual spend post. So where is that? There it is. So we'll take that out, put that into our spend controller. And that's all good. And it will redirect back to the root. That's fine. Okay, so if we run the test now, that should pass. Right, same problem we had before is we had a test that was doing spend against the controller. Now it needs against the account controller. That needs to go against the spend controller. So actually, let's go ahead and do the same thing. We'll take this out of here. We'll basically create a copy of this, which is going to be our spend controller test. And that's our test. And this is no longer account controller, but spend controller. This is spend controller. Nope. Spend controller, and this is spend controller. Let me just run all my unit tests because I haven't done that in a while. Okay, good, those all pass. And now let's go ahead and run the spend view integration test, and I think that should pass now. And it does, great. So let's just go back to that test and take a look. Right, so basically that hit the spend page, should have been an OK. There should have been a view called spend, and that view should have two attributes, balance and spend. We could go deeper and look at what's inside that, but I don't feel the need to do that. Okay, so now we can actually run the application and take a look. Oh, we should add a button just like we did for the deposit page. So let's go and do that. So I guess we'll just say a href equals spend. And we'll just say spend money. Okay. I may want those on the same line actually, so let's do that. Okay, and let's go ahead and run the application. Refresh the page, and boom. I really don't understand what is up with, why is this overlapping? So let's go and deposit some money. We'll deposit $100, and it was a gift. And we'll spend some money, spend $35 on Magic the Gathering cards. Whoa. Post not. Oh, I think I know what happened. That means I have a failing test. So I clearly need to run. So if I go to the spend view integration tests, I didn't actually run all the tests in this class. So let's do that because I think I know what's wrong. But this should fail. So I expect this method, this test method to fail. If it doesn't, then I have a missing test. Okay, good, that does fail. Anybody want to guess why? So the get against /spend works. The post is not working. So remember I copied and pasted the post mapping method into the spend controller. So if we go to the spend controller, we'll see we have a request mapping up here of /spend. But then I didn't remove it from here, so it was basically looking for /spend/spend, which is not what we want. So good. Okay. Now the test should pass. I'll just run the failing one. And while it's doing that, I want to rename this method to process spend command. The method name doesn't really matter from Spring's point of view because it just cares that it has the annotation, but from a readability standpoint, I want something like that. And actually, I want to go to my deposit controller and do that. So this is deposit form, and this is process deposit command. Okay. We may be able to provide a service that centralizes this, because right now we're talking directly to the account object, but already we can see there's duplication across these process commands, especially since they just take a transaction command. So we're going to see that we'll be able to provide a nice service that will be able to process any command, and that will pull pretty much this entire thing out of here. So because you always want, as much as possible, your adapters to be really, really small, really thin as possible. And this is really kind of domain. This is that borderline domain. So we want to put a shared service across that, but not yet. Okay, so our test passed. Let's go and run the application again. And Why did this fail? Oh, duh. I didn't do the proper rename on this. So it's process spend command. And then this one is process. Wow, even I am not always in the habit of properly using the rename method. What I should have done, in fact, let me do that. Yes, fine. So what I should have done is when I change the name of this method, I should use the rename method refactoring. And that way it would have changed the test as correctly. And if I go to deposit controller test, that would have been the same thing. So always good to use the rename method, even if you think it's not used anywhere. Tests are hopefully one place that it's used. Okay, so let's run the application again. We'll deposit $100 and we'll spend 35. Awesome. Okay. And the last thing we want to do is basically get rid of this import and put it onto a separate page. So let's go through that process as well. We're basically going to have an import CSV controller test. And so that'll be very much similar to this. Let's see. So actually this one, I should just rename that, but all right, whatever. So this test goes away because now I have specific tests for it. So I will go ahead and delete it. Oops. And put that test in here. Let me run all my unit tests because I don't think I broke anything, but let's be sure. Great, those all pass. And now we have a spend view integration, we have a deposit view integration, and we're going to basically want an import CSV view integration test. And again, we'll put this under import. The view name is going to be import, and what did we have in the command object for that is just an import command. Okay. So that'll fail. Let's make sure that fails. So all this work that we're doing, splitting out these pages, we need basically, again, because we want to put security on top of it. And we basically want to have security such that the parent can access all of these, but the child cannot actually access any of these subpages. It can only he or she can only access they can only access the main page. So we'll protect the front page, which has the account and the account balance and the transactions, with just general security that you just have to be logged in to view it. And then later on, maybe today, or if not next time, we'll add on more refined, basically authorization that only somebody in the parent role can view the spend, deposit, and import pages. Okay, so that test failed. Let's go to our account controller. We're going to pull this last thing out. We're going to go to our this thing is going to move to an import controller, so let's go and create a new import controller. And so this will be controller, and we'll do the request mapping to import. And back here, we want to move this, and we will not forget this time to make that change there. So put this here, we'll take out this so we don't get the double thing. We need account, so let's go and copy that. And generate the constructor, and auto-wire it. Okay. So that's our post mapping. We will now need our get mapping. String import CSV form, and that takes the model. And in there we have this thing. We also want the balance. Sorry, I'm just thinking like, okay, this is the third time I'm doing the same thing with the balance, but I'll refactor that out when I refactor out the timely fragment stuff. That we'll do that next time. So let's add this here. We're going to return, this is import CSV. That's what we'll call it. Let me just make a note that I want to do that. So what is it? What did I just say? Yeah, clearly I'm getting to the end of my Pomodoro. Oh yeah, so time leaf fragment for account balance view that's currently duplicated across the controllers. Okay. All right. So we have our import CSV form, returns this. We'll have to split that out into a page. We have our import CSV. This actually is process import command. It does the right thing. It responds to post, get mapping. And so now the last thing we want to do is pull out. So let's copy this thing. This is our import CSV. Import CSV. That's our balance. This goes away. From our account balance, we would take that last form, pull it out, so we don't need this BR here anymore. We'll add the ahref to import CSV. That's that. And now here we've got the form. It goes to /import. That's cool. Import button. That all looks good. Let's go to our import CSV controller test. That's that one. And so now this goes against, this is the import controller, right? Import controller dot new count dot var. And then this is import CSV controller. And this is import CSV form. No, this is process import command. Okay. So let's run our unit tests. Actually, you know what? Let's just run all tests. And while we let that run, we'll take a 3-minute break. Okay, so the tests ran, and one of them failed, and it's actually the one that I expected to fail, although I didn't change the test name. So get against import should return import form page. And that fails as expected because actually, I think it failed as because it's 4, no, it's got 200. Actually, I didn't expect that to fail. All right, let's take a look and see what happened. So let's go to our controller. We got the balance, we got the import command. Oh, this is the name of the view that we wanted to use. So I think in our integration test, we assumed that it was something else, which is incorrect. Do you want that name? Sure. Okay. So that means I think all of the tests now pass. So let's go ahead and run run this one. And that passes. Great. Okay. So that means all of our tests are passing, and we can double check. Oh, did we put a view button on the account balance page? Yes, we did. Great. So we can, probably should have written a test for that, but all right. So let's try it out. Would help if we had the app running, right? And so we can wait for that to load. Done yet? Are you there yet? You are. Okay, great. Let's do import CSV. Ooh. Did I not name that correctly? Oh, okay. That's my bad. See, that should have been import. Import CSV is the name of the view, but import is the URL. That might be a little confusing. Import. There's our import. So let's go ahead and import some transactions. And we'll click import. And there are all our transactions. Wonderful. That all looks good. Looks like we need some space at the bottom of the page. But I don't want to go down the CSS rabbit hole right now. So what is my... Yeah, I'm not, I don't want to start playing around with that. Okay, so we've got, and maybe we want to center these buttons, but again, I'm not going to worry about that. Let's see. Could just add some some BRs at the bottom, and that's sort of good enough. Okay, so we have fully refactored out the pages, sort of the different functionality into the separate pages. They are now in separate controllers as well. We have all those controllers here. Let's refresh the page. And so now we've got these buttons. They're working to take us to the separate pages. And so now we can add back the security. So let's do this. Let's do a commit. And so, are we on episode 15? I'm actually starting to lose track of my episodes. Okay. So episode 15, separate, deposit, spend, and import into, or if I can spell deposit correctly, so separate pages in preparation for applying security to the deposit, spend, and import functions. Okay. Let's go and commit that. And may as well go ahead and push that. that will roll out the new version to Heroku. So we can check on that later and make sure that's still working. What's in my event log here? No. Anything important? Nope. Okay. All right, and what else? Let's close that, clean up here. Okay, so now let's go back and look at our security stuff. So we'll go back to our, actually our main, back to here. So this is where we started with. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to add a security configuration such that the uh, the home page basically just needs authorization, and but the spend, deposit, and import need to have authorization with a specific role. So what we can do is we can grab this and we can create a security config. That will go out here. So security config, paste that in. So all this stuff is not, darn it, we lost our formatting. Okay. So now we need to go back to our POM file and turn the security stuff back on. So that's our security test support. And this is security stuff there. Let me put a label. And put another label. Sometimes I go a little overboard in my POM files. Mail and quartz I don't need. I may never need the quartz stuff. The quartz is a scheduler. I may never need that. Mail is going to be one of our other adapters in addition for basically for notifications besides the SMS. All right, so that's all in there. Let's run the application. Let me reformat this. So unfortunately the formatting got lost. The indentation on this stuff is kind of weird. And that's why I have these tags, this @formatter off and @formatter on. So that way if I try to reformat, it's supposed to ignore it. Clearly that didn't work. I'll have to look into why that is. Okay, so we'll just don't reformat this file. In-memory authentication. Okay. And so what we want is we want to authorize requests against what pages. So these are we want we want deposit, and does this take multiple ones? Yes. So we want deposit, spend, and import to all have the role of admin. I don't like the name of that role. let's call it parent. This may not work because I remember something about in the later Spring security, basically as of Spring Boot 2.0, they did something with the in-memory authentication. So we'll have to look at that in a minute. So that so authorize requests, ant matchers, right? So let's see. So something we'll want to add to the page is basically who's logged in. That'll be useful for debugging information. So we'll add that here to the bottom. We'll need to add this namespace, this XML namespace up here. And let's start from there. So basically we have we basically said that we want these pages to only be accessible by someone who has the role of parent. And we'll change this parent. I know that's not a great with user. Can I say with user? Can I say and? Yes, and with user kid, password kid. Okay. Oh, this role's parent should be up here. So this should be parent. And this should be kid. The indentation here is a bit messy. Let's clean that up. This and should be out here. I love Fluent APIs, but sometimes I feel like this one goes a bit too far. So we have an in-memory authentication with user named parent, with their password parent, their role of parent. I guess technically they're both kid and parent. We'll have to see about that. We might want to change the name of the roles, but we'll have to think about that. And then there's kid that only has a role of kid. Okay. So we'll need a login page. I wonder if I can just use the sort of the built-in one. Let's see what happens if I do that. Okay, so let's run the application. I don't think I have this stuff quite set up correctly yet. Let's see if it complains about the password stuff. All right, so let's see what happens if we try to go here. So that didn't seem to require any authentication. That's fine. I guess we didn't say that it needs authentication. So let's go. What happens if we try to deposit money? Basically, we're forbidden, access denied. So we should have gotten redirected to a login form, but that's okay. We'll want to only display these buttons if you have if you're authorized. So we need to authorize any request I guess has any authority. Any request has role. What do we actually want here? We want any request to at least have a role of kid. And so, well, let's not, so let's go, not any request, but let's do an ant matcher for root has role kid. Can I do multiple roles? Because what I want, is Spring boot security authorization multiple roles. I should look at the docs for this. But I want something within the past year. This is the problem with doing searches for Spring is you'll find stuff that's like super, super old. All right, let's go look at this one. Oh, okay. So I guess I need to create my own authentication handler. Eh, um, mm, yeah. So okay. So what I want to do is then it might be easier if, since this takes multiple roles, I'll just add in the kid role here. And that way, uh, this has role kid, and then this one must have role parent. Um, let's try that. Well, that's weird. Let's just completely restart. May as well add my login page here. And so the application is up and running. Let's see what happens if I do that. I'll come back to this login page. So go here, go to here, the root. That's fine. So okay, so since there's no login page, there was no way to log in. It's basically just going to say forbidden, access denied. Cool. All right. Username, password, that's all fine. We'll create a login controller. Up here. And that will actually be under our web adapter. And that all looks good. What else do we need to do? So got the login page, got the login controller, we got the security config. I think that's it. Oh, we could add this authorize. So we won't want is authenticated. We'll actually want is in a specific role. So I'll have to come back to figuring out how to do that. Let's restart the application. Okay. And we'll go here. Not ready yet? Now you're ready. Oh, I didn't update the security config to go to our form login page. Okay, and let's restart it again. Cool. All right, so we tried to go to the root. We were redirected here. We can say admin, admin, which is certainly not a valid login. What was it? Parent, parent. Right, so this is what I expected. The password encoder stuff. This was the thing that changed. So Spring boot to security password encoder. Right, so in Spring Security 4, this is what it looked like. But in Spring Security 5, we can still use the authentication stuff. We just need to create a password encoder. So let's do that. And then the encoder gets passed in. So we basically encode this stuff. So that way, even in memory, the password is going to be encoded. So let's do that. So here, password, I'm going to encode it. And then encode this one. And that should fix it. Restart once again. And let's close this window, come back here, go back to the root. Now log in as parent. And we are now logged in as parent. This stuff isn't correct. I have to look into why that is. um, let's actually take a look at that, because not sure why that's not being processed by TimeLeaf. We have the Spring Security stuff. I'll have to check on that. I'm not going to worry about that right now. What I do want to do is I do want to suppress. Actually, let's go to deposit money. So that required parent level authentication. I don't have a way to log out, ironically enough. So I actually need to add that. So I was logged in as parent, so so that means I can access anything. And what I now want to do is log in as a kid, so I can see that I can't actually, so I can click on these buttons, but it won't actually allow me to hit those buttons. All right. So let's refresh the page. Oh, yeah, it still thinks I'm logged in. How do I implement the log? I forget how I implement a logout page. So Spring, boot, security, logout. Uh, So basically, we specify a logout URL. So what does that look like? So that's just a post to the controller. Not sure where this author. So here's the controller. There's the login, log out. I don't know where they put their logout. Because here's the get mapping for the login. Where's the post mapping for logout? It is not anywhere. Oh, it goes to app logout. App logout. Do we not? All right, let's Spring boot security log out. All right, if all else fails, go, or actually that should have been the first place I go to for a Spring security reference. So how do we log out? Handling logouts. So we can create a logout URL. Um, so it looks like we don't need to implement a page that does that. So when no logout capabilities are automatically applied, the default is that accessing the URL logout will log a user out. Oh, well then, does that mean I can just do logout? No. Okay, so it's not quite automatically applied. Oh, because I need this part. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go into our security config. We want form login. And log out. So if we specified form so log out basically just gives us, we could specify a different log out URL if we wanted to. Presumably permit all is useful. I don't know. Do we need to do that? I don't think we need to do that. So we don't need to customize anything. It will basically invalidate the session, clear up everything, and redirect to basically redirect to the default login page, which I think is actually just exactly what we want. So we don't need to say this. We just need to say that we have a logout mechanism. We don't need a special logout page. We don't need anything else to happen. Yeah, so I think that actually is sufficient. All right, so let's do that. So we specified our own login page using form login, but for logout, we don't need anything. If we want to have a logout button somewhere, then we can just basically have a link to /login, /logout. We'll eventually do the CSRF stuff, the cross-site uh, protection, but right now we're cool. Okay, so if we go here and go here, we are log in. All right, so let's log in as a kid. And if we try to spend money, we basically get a 403. So one thing that we haven't done is basically set up a page for a forbidden. That's a little bit nicer than this, but that's fine. So let's log out. I thought it would have redirected us back to here. So we'll have to fix that. But now if we log in as parent and we try to spend money, then it all works. Okay, so we have basic security for protecting different levels of the parent versus the kid. What good timing, my Pomodoro timer just went off. It is also my scheduled end of stream time. So we will call it complete for now. We'll need to do some cleanup. One thing is I want to make sure that I can see who's logged in. And then I want to basically not show the buttons if you don't have permission to go there. And the next step will also be to start hooking up the login with some kind of profile that has the phone number for known for text messaging, so we can start pulling together this idea of having a user profile. Some other cleanup, I want to figure out some of the HTML, CSS stuff, and things like that. So if you're liking this and you want more information about sort of behind the scenes, or you have questions, go to Ted M. Young. You can see the URL right here, tedmyoung.com. And you can also sign up and subscribe to my mailing list, where I send out emails basically about this and related projects. You can find me on Twitter as @JitterTed, but all the important information is if you go there. All right, thank you very much, and catch you next time.